Okay, so inshallah, we will go ahead and begin our program with the blessings and barakat of a recitation from the Holy Quran. And for that, I'd like to invite our dear brother Mehdi Falahati to recite for us. Let's welcome him with the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless and protect all of our dear parents, our admin staff, and inshallah you all had a very fruitful week after we celebrated the birth of the awaited Imam of our time, inshallah. I'll be reciting today of Surah Al-Rum, starting from verse 22, inshallah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. ومن آياته منامكم بالليل والنهار وابتغاؤكم من فضله ومن آياته منامكم بالليل والنهار وابتغاؤكم من فضله إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يسمعون. ومن آياته يريكم البرق خوفا وطمعا وينزل من السماء ماء فيحيي به الأرض بعد موتها إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون. ومن آياته أن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم جزاكم الله خير تواصلوا عبر
Thank you so much, Brother Mahdi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for that beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, taking time to join us for this important session today about sleep as it relates to our holistic health, including our spiritual health, mental health, physical health, inshallah. Today's topic is one of maybe the most powerful but often overlooked um, elements of our children's health when it comes to learning, when it comes to emotion regulation, when it comes to spirituality. And so we're really happy and honored to see a good number of people have joined us. I do know that we have our parents, our Rise family members that are here with us today, but I also know that we have lots of people who are joining us who are not a part of Rise. So for those of you who are not, I'd like to welcome you, especially as honored guests tonight. My name is Nazir Salak. I'm the principal of the school, and I'm very happy and honored to welcome you all on behalf of the school. So we all know that, alhamdulillah, our kids are living very busy lives in a very busy world. We have, busy schedules, school, there's academic pressures, all kinds of screen exposure, social stress, etc. And many families are dealing with challenges with bedtime routines, nighttime waking, difficulty falling asleep, trying to figure out, you know, what is the right way of getting our kids to sleep on their own, and so on. And so, inshallah, tonight our goal is really quite simple. It's really to help in three main things. What we hope to do is first understand why sleep actually really matters so deeply in all elements of our lives for all, again, spiritual, academic, social, all of those reasons. That's one. Two, we really hope to give you practical and realistic strategies that you can use with your children to use, things that you can use at home to help you. And three is for us to, have an understanding of how this really matters when it comes to our spiritual goals and also our goals for having the correct foundations from like a, medical science lens as well. So, inshallah, hopefully we'll achieve all of those goals tonight. Before we get into it, I'd like to invite everyone to, if you're comfortable, go ahead and put on your cameras. I know it's hard to talk to a bunch of, black squares for our speakers. So if you're comfortable, take a moment, get yourself ready, and go ahead and put on your cameras. And as I always like to say, with sessions like this, we hope to make it a little bit interactive for you as well, that we hope to have a Q&A session as part of this program tonight. And so the more you kind of interact when prompted, and even when not prompted, we have our chat open, the more we all, benefit as a community. So again, I invite you all to please go ahead and open up your cameras if you're comfortable, inshallah. And remember that the chat feature is open. So if you have questions throughout the program, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. And when prompted, please go ahead and interact. And hopefully we can all benefit from that. So before we begin, I have a question for you all. So our first bit of interaction starts now. So I'd like to ask you all to drop in the chat, what is the hardest sleep challenge that you are facing in your home right now? You can answer that question. What is the hardest sleep challenge you are currently facing at home? Could be related to your kids, could be personal, could be your own sleep challenges. Go ahead and drop them in the chat. Okay, first one that came in is about timing. Um, Kids won't fall asleep or they stay up late. Toddlers waking up every 2 hours due to discomfort. 4-year-old son doesn't sleep until midnight because he's has an addiction to an iPad. Restlessness during sleep, too overstimulated. Co-sleeping with toddlers. Establishing sleep routines. I'm seeing Fatima wants to know how does she get her kids to sleep by 7. That's a good goal, Fatima. Hopefully we can get to that. Balancing co-sleeping benefits with my mental health, make your own personal mental health. Excellent. Um, Kids are not tired enough. Late sleep. Kids sleeping after the parents are falling asleep. I think we've all experienced that at some point. That's a good one. Okay. Addicted to coding. Okay. Different ages. So kids are sleeping. Okay, I see different bedtimes because of different ages of kids. Okay, excellent questions. Okay, as you all see, we have, alhamdulillah, a lot of questions, and my hope is that we can get to all of them, if not all of them, most of them, inshallah, by the end of our program today. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first honored guest speaker, our dear Shaykh Salim Yusufali, who is the Dean of Mission here at Rise Academy. And in addition to that, he is the Assistant Resident Scholar at SABA Center, located in San Jose. And mashallah, in addition to all of his seminary studies in the Hausa, he brings a wealth of knowledge, of course, from the Islamic lens, but also from the educational lens. He's been working in schools for a many number of years now and also holds a doctorate in education leadership. So, someone who's very well qualified to speak, obviously, from the Islamic lens, but also has a lot of experience in working with families and children. And he plays a fundamental role in helping to guide our children here at this school and in our community. So, with that, we'd like to welcome him with the blessings and barakat of the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sister Nazira, and welcome to all parents who are joining us in this parenting seminar today. So I am going to give a brief introduction to this topic, but really we're all um, honored and excited to be, inshallah, benefiting from our main guest speaker, who, inshallah, Sister Nazir will be introducing after my brief introductory slides right now. If I can get the next slide, please. So I want to pose a question here, which is, it's a difficult thing for us to consider. But it's a question which it troubles me because, alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity to be part of Islamic schools for over a decade now. And one of the things that's very clear to me, having a chance to see children, day after day, year after year, is that children are getting sicker. And overall, in our society, children are getting sicker. And this is something which is backed up through evidence. If you go to the next slide, you can see that according to a recent study that was based on a number of data sources, children in America are getting sicker on the basis of 170 indicators. So if you just look at the highlighted words there, obesity, anxiety, depression, sleep apnea, early onset of menstruation, trouble sleeping, limited activity, more likely to die. You see that in all these measures, over the last, maybe 15 to 20 years, as they've been tracking that in children across the country, the cases and the incidents have increased. And this is something that troubles us as parents, as educators, when we see consistently that children do not always have the childlike qualities that you'd want them to have when they come to school, right? Normally, you think a child as being like, having a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, really ready to go. But consistently, when I speak with educators and my fellow staff members, there's a general complaint of we see more and more children coming in, circles under their eyes, yawning, or from a nutrition basis, not having eaten breakfast, or when it comes to, let's say, their just overall demeanor, they're very restless, right? So these are things which are concerning us. And when we're trying to see what we can do to address this problem, there's two ways of looking at it. One of them is you say that, okay, let the problem happen, then let's look for the right medicine. But the other way is to be preventative. How can we prevent the problem from happening in the first place? If I can get the next slide, please. If we go back in history and we look at the way that Islamic scholars approached um, guiding human beings towards what it is that's best for them. And ultimately, Islam is meant to help us lead a dignified life in which we're satisfied. So Islamic scholars, historically, they would say that before you can be benefiting from the amazing spiritual teachings of our faith, you have to be in a state where you're maintaining six daruriyat, six essential lifestyle habits. And these include things like sleep and wakefulness, foods and drink, rest and physical activity, psychological activity and repose, meaning that you have to have time for your brain to have a rest, for your thoughts to be able to be formed properly without being distracted. And then they mentioned two other ones, elimination and retention, and then atmospheric air. And this is something that was known, centuries ago. And you find elements of these in the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith as well, that these are essential in order to be able to be healthy on a physical and a spiritual level. But we see that for our children, they're being challenged in all these areas, whether it be ultra processed food, whether it be, imbalanced diet, which is high in those things which the child doesn't need and low in those things which the child does need, whether it be with the disturbance of their psychological activity because of devices, whether it be because of their gut lining being disturbed because of an unhealthy diet, or whether it be a lack of physical activity and many other things, we see that our children are really facing challenges in these areas. And that's why for today we picked one of them. And alhamdulillah, we're blessed to have somebody who's an expert in this area who's inshallah going to provide us with those guidelines, whether we're currently facing a problem or whether we're looking to prevent these type of problems happening for our children at all stages of their life, also for ourselves as well. We really do need this type of education. The last thing I'll mention, if I can get the next slide, is that part of this is parents making sure that we take the right approach when it comes to our parenting styles. You're going to be hearing some guidelines from Dr. Iqbal, inshallah. It's important to remember that a good parent is not a parent who has tons of rules. That's not going to work when somebody is, extremely authoritative and they're like a dictator. Nor is a good parent one who is extremely permissive. The child gets to decide whether they can have an iPad at night or not. The child gets to decide what time they go to bed. The child gets to decide whether they have breakfast or not. No. If you look at what is the balanced approach, which is more in line with the teachings of Islam regarding parenting, it's where we do have some non-negotiables. We do have those things which are essential for the physical and also then consequently the spiritual health of the children, where we take a hard stance as parents and we say that this is what it is, right? On these things, we're not going to be able to compromise on, right? So that's what we're looking to do, inshallah, as parents in terms of striking that balance. With that, I will, inshallah, hand it off back to Sister Nazira. And I hope that, inshallah, we'll be able to take the most from this presentation, thinking about, again, not just our children, but also our own lifestyles. What do we need to do in order to be closer to the way that Allah has created us so we can prevent disease and sickness from entering our physical and spiritual lives? Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Sheikh Salim, for setting the tone and giving us the reminder about our role as parents and the important role we play in setting the right tone and framing everything within the Islamic lens, including our sleep. So before we move on to the main part of our session, I have a question for you all. When I say go, okay, so just wait. Just when I say go, I'd like for y'all to type in one word into the chat and answer this question. How does your child or children act when overtired? Okay, when I say go. So go ahead and type it in, but don't press send just yet, okay? Because we're going to waterfall this in. I'm going to open up my chat here. Type in your answer. I'll give you another couple of seconds. Think about it. I'm going to do this one too. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Ooh, okay, there we go. I'm seeing lots of crankies. Lots of crankies, makes sense. Cranky, hyper, okay. Hyperactive, yes. Whiny, wild and hyper. Couldn't stick to one word. I get it. I totally get it. Sad, sleepy, cries over everything. Extra. I like that. Fussy, etc. Yeah, so we see that they start to have some emotional issues. And inshallah, I'm sure Dr. Iqbal will inshallah be touching on this. So with that, I'm so happy and honored to introduce Dr. Iqbal, who's actually one of our parents here at Rise Academy. His lovely children are here with us. A little bit about him. Dr. Iqbal Rashid is a triple board certified physician in general pediatrics, pediatric pulmonology, and sleep medicine. So very well qualified to be speaking on today's topic. He has completed his pediatric residency in Long Island, followed by 4 years practicing general pediatrics in Arizona, where he developed a deep appreciation for community-based care and long-term patient relationships. He then pursued a subspecialty fellowship training in pediatric pulmonology and sleep medicine at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, gaining and advancing expertise in complex respiratory and sleep disorders. Following this fellowship, he served on faculty at UCLA for 2.5 years before joining Kaiser Permanente here in Northern California in 2019. He's currently practicing here in the Bay Area and is actively involved in clinical care, program development, and resident education. Dr. Rashid and his family have been living here in the Bay Area for the past 7 years, and we're so happy and honored to have him be part of our school community. Thank you so much, Dr. Iqbal, for joining us today. And inshallah, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sister. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Perfect. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm humbled by the invitation to speak. But I will be talking about sleep today, and we'll just get started because I have a lot of material to cover. And I'm hopeful that I will be able to cover pretty much everything we hope to do. So the first thing we'll be talking about sleep. And so what is sleep is the first question that comes to mind. So sleep is a state of unconsciousness in which the brain is relatively more responsive to internal than external stimuli. I'll be talking about a lot of things, but mainly insomnia. That'll be like my 95% of my talk. And I'll just touch on the other topics, which are parasomnias, restless sleep, and sleep apnea if I have some time. So starting with parasomnias. Parasomnia is an umbrella term that includes nightmares, night terrors, sleepwalking, sleep talking. These are episodic behaviors that intrude into our sleep and occur most commonly in preschool children, and they gradually decrease in frequency over the first decade of life. Most cases of parasomnias are idiopathic, and they're usually self-limited. The two most common reasons for you to have parasomnias is either having poor quantity of sleep or poor quality of sleep. I will spend, as I said, the majority of time focusing on the quantity of sleep and may touch very briefly on the quality if time permits. So I was looking at the chat, and I also I was also talking to the program administrators to see what they would like me to talk about. And I think something that kept coming back to me is how long is long enough for a child to be sleeping? And I think it depends on the age of a child, okay, or a person, to be honest. So a newborn baby, as this image illustrates, is supposed to be sleeping 14 to 17 hours. An infant who's 4 months to 11 months of age would be sleeping 12 to 15 hours. Toddlers should sleep 11 to 14. Preschoolers 10 to 13. School-age children should be sleeping 9 to 11 hours. Teenagers 8 to 10 hours. We, as adults, should be sleeping anywhere between 7 to 9 hours. Okay. And if we must sleep the recommended hours to maintain optimal health. Okay. So the most important lesson from the previous slide is your kids need more sleep than you. Okay, that's very, very critical for you to understand. So we can't have a time for bedtime that aligns with the kids. They need more sleep. And then something for us to reflect on is we can't sleep 8 hours if you're only in bed for 6, right? So that's something we also have to come to terms with. Let's talk about insomnia now, which is basically defined as difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, or difficulty going back to sleep if you ever wake up in the middle of the night. It has to happen at least 3 nights a week for at least 3 months and resulting in daytime impairment to be classified as an insomnia. Okay, we have different kinds of insomnias, and I'll touch on each of these. The first kind is sleep onset association insomnia. The second one is limit setting behavioral insomnia. And the third is insomnia that is prevalent in teenagers and adults. So the first one is called sleep onset association insomnia. And as its name implies, it's also called behavioral insomnia of infancy. And this occurs mainly for kids who are 6 months to 2 years of age. In this disorder, a child learns to fall asleep with certain associations, such as being held, being rocked, or being fed at bedtime, which typically requires some parental intervention. Okay, our sleep happens in cycle. We go through different sleep stages, and we keep have multiple cycles of sleep while we're sleeping, and the cycles usually last anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes. So what happens when me and you wake up, we roll over and go back to sleep. When that child wakes up, it has to have that same parental association to be recreated to be able to fall asleep again. Please understand that your child cannot go to sleep without those sleep associations, and that's why this is such a struggle. So what my recommendation generally is to start off with is do not do anything in the beginning of the night that you don't want to repeat at 3 o'clock in the morning when the child is waking up. Okay, so generally the recommendation is you should put your child in bed awake so they're learning how to self-soothe and be able to fall asleep by themselves. Because so then if that is happening, whenever they do wake up in the middle of the night, they know how to fall back to sleep by themselves. That was the first kind, which is the sleep onset association insomnia. The second kind is called limit setting behavioral insomnia. Okay. In this kind of behavioral insomnia happens more frequently in kids who are 3 to 6 years of age. Okay. And in this disorder, at bedtime, the child has multiple demands. One more hug, one more run to the bathroom, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, which frequently delays their bedtime and ultimately results in inadequate sleep. Okay, and this cartoon should sound like what your kids may be demonstrating sometimes. So one of the issues is that this is mainly due to the caregiver or the parent's inability or unwillingness to set up rules. Okay, and as Sheikh Salim was saying, we have to have a balance of not being too authoritative, but at the same time not being too permissive. So a good balance is something that's very important. And then what I usually talk about is how do you manage this problem? So for you to manage this problem, I want you to just take a step back and recognize what you're up against. Okay, your sweet little child who's in front of you, they are the kids of the future. Okay, they are going to be answering questions we don't even have yet. Okay, so they have all our strengths and we have all their weaknesses. They're coming into the situation with their intellect. We are going into the same situation with our emotions. And that's why this is such a disbalance. I know I'm going to date myself right now, but when I practice this during my clinical time, I usually talk about the famous kung fu fighter, quote unquote, named Bruce Lee. And I asked my parents, would you fight Bruce Lee for me? And they're quick to say, no, we would want to fight Bruce Lee for you. And then the reason they don't is because it's not going to end well for you. So now, depending if you're from Pakistan or India, I'm going to give you some examples of male athletes that are very famous. So your child is Virat Kohli, LeBron, what you call MS Dhoni, Rohit Sharma, Wasim Akram. They are huge stars. If you're somebody who grew up in America, you can think about LeBron James, Tom Brady, Lionel Messi as those superstars. And that's what you're up against. What's been happening is you're underestimating what you're up against, and that's why this has been such a big struggle, right? You have two tricks in your bag, your child has three tricks in their bag, and they'll keep winning every single time. So please do not, the sooner you accept this, the better it is going to be for you. So do not butt heads, do not pick fights. You will lose every single time. So the way to approach this problem is to manage this a little bit more appropriately, is by letting the child get ownership of the problem, and the only person who can stop that child is that child themselves. So the idea is strong. You have to enforce consistent bedtime rules, fixed bedtime, firm bedtime limits, and please encourage positive reinforcement. Something that has worked for me in my practice is a thing called a bedtime pass. A bedtime pass is something you can print or Google it, and you can find something online. Or if you want, you can have your child do like an index card with stickers or crayons, and that's like a ticket. Every time the child has a demand, they have to give up that ticket to get that engagement from you. No more tickets means no more engagement or request. But if the child is able to hang on to the bedtime pass and caches it in the morning, they can get a star on the calendar that's right next to their bed. And after weeks worth of stars, they can get a surprise. I did not say prize. I said surprise, because if we've already given our kids the car, the yacht, the helicopter, and the mansion, they don't need anything else from us. But the surprise is the only thing that may keep them interested and intrigued. So again, it has to be a surprise. It has to be something that's worth investing in, and that's gonna have them have a buy-in into the situation. Okay, and kids know what they're doing. They know exactly what they want from you, and so if you raise the bar high enough, they will be able to invest. Okay. There are a couple of websites that I can suggest, but this is something that's very commonly used. Is a thing called babysleep.com. It has lots of useful videos and resources that you can look into. I'm gonna take a pause for a second to see if there are any specific questions in the chat, and if not, then I'll shift into my second portion of my talk. But I'll just maybe take one or two questions if something has come up, Sister Nazira.
I don't see any questions in the chat yet.
Okay, perfect.
But I have a question.
Of course, of course.
I'm going to ask our dear audience members to go ahead and engage in the chat. I have a question for you all, because I know where Dr. Iqbal is going next. And so my question for you all is, you're going to type one of three words, okay? It's going to be yes, no, or sometimes. And my question is screens before bed, okay? For you and your household, is it a yes? Is it a no? Or is it a sometimes? Okay. Now, there's no shaming going on here. This is a safe space, inshallah. So I just like to get an idea. Okay. Now, screens before bedtime. Yes, no, or maybe. Ready? Go. Or not maybe, sometimes. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm seeing lots of no's, but I'm also seeing hey, yes, sometimes. Try not to, but maybe it's happening. Okay. Excellent. So there you go, Dr. Iqbal. You have some info there for yourself, so we get
Okay.
an idea. We're not alone, right, with our struggles.
Yeah, of course, of course. So switching out, going to my next piece of my presentation. So our life is a reflection of how we sleep, and how we sleep is a reflection of our life. Okay. Everything is connected. Okay. Our days are connected to our nights, and our nights are connected to our days. And the way we are living our lives, everything is so complicated and tangled up, and it's sometimes difficult to untangle that. So it feels like we are stuck up in a Gordian knot. So what I'm going to do now is talk about insomnia in teens and adults, and I'm going to try and untangle and deconstruct insomnia for you the way I think of insomnia when I'm managing them in my practice. So I think of insomnia as in three pieces, and I use the Spielman's 3P model, which includes predisposing factors, precipitating factors, and perpetuating factors. Okay, the predisposing factors are stuff that is very common in the community. It could be anxious. A child, maybe, or an adult may have an anxious temperament. They may be a worrier. They may have mood issues. They may be in a perpetual state of hyperarousal. They may have obsessional thinking. And what happens frequently, I have patients who also struggle with mind racing at bedtime, meaning they cannot shut off their mind and they just keep thinking about things on and on and on. And that's very typical. And some of us struggle a lot with anxiety and depression. It's not just something that we see on TV. A lot of our community members are also struggling with this. And I want you to recognize that so many people are struggling in their own time, in their own space. And sometimes we have to give people some grace because this is a true struggle. And what happened, I stumbled upon a couple of quotations that really helped me understand this. And obviously, it's an oversimplification of the situation, but it has helped me give me a good frame of reference. So people who generally struggle with anxiety are living in the future. Okay, what's going to happen, what may happen, what could happen. So you're always perpetuating over that. People who are struggling with depression are stuck in the past. Okay, you cannot let go of the past. But if people who are to some extent are at peace are the ones who are living in the present. Okay, and this has helped me make sense of how I manage this, to some degree. And then the second quote that I've come across is no amount of anxiety can change the future, and no amount of guilt, remorse, or regret can change the past. Okay, so if you find yourself getting ahead of yourself or stuck in the past, just keep pulling yourself to the present. Keep finding yourself. Keep trying to center yourself, and that's the best way of managing these mood disorders. Obviously, it's a very simplified way of thinking about this, but this has really helped me frame the problem in a positive way. Okay, so this was the predisposing factor. The precipitating factor could be anything that triggers or destabilizes your sleep. It could be stress at home, stress at school. We just went through a pandemic. It could be all sorts of things that could destabilize your sleep. And a large proportion of patients can actually tell me why or what triggered their sleep from getting worse. And then once we have gone through the precipitating factors, the third piece of it is perpetuating factors. How do you react to those triggers and how are you coping with that to manage your sleep? And if you're having poor sleep hygiene, you're spending a lot of time in bed, napping or dozing at the wrong time, worrying about sleep, those things can then perpetuate the problem that you're having. With that, I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about how do you fix insomnia using sleep hygiene techniques. Okay, I like to keep things simple and incorporate behavioral interventions that are known to be very helpful. And as I talk about this, you'll notice that a lot of my recommendations are to be incorporated during the day. So sleep hygiene that starts during the day. The first thing we should think about is exercising. Okay, we should spend at least 20 minutes a day, even if it's doing it 3 times a week. That's enough. But at least do something that sort of helps you with mobility. Okay. The second is do not take any naps in the afternoon as it will disrupt your night sleep. Every minute of the day that you're awake, you're accumulating sleep debt. Okay. And when you fall asleep, you're paying off that debt. Okay. The longer you've been awake for, the more pressure you have to fall asleep. But if you take a long nap in the afternoon, and you have paid off some of that sleep debt, you do not have as much pressure to go back to sleep at bedtime. Okay. The next thing is no caffeine late in the evening. That includes tea, coffee, sodas, and energy drinks. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushbacks from my brothers about chai in the evenings, but it is true because it does prevent you to fall asleep and sometimes prevents you from going into deep sleep while you're sleeping. Okay. Something else lots of people struggle with is a lot of stuff that's happening, in their mind at bedtime. Lots of whys and ifs and how, and so many of us struggle with this. So the recommendation is please do not stress and do not take your worries to bedtime. It's okay to take some time for yourself, maybe a few minutes in the evening or just before bed to calm yourself down and centering yourself. So when you're going in bed, you're a little bit, after a reset. If it's something that's really very much on your mind, you can do a thing called a worry diary where you write it down and let it go. Okay. Some people like organizing and doing a to-do list better so they could plan their next day better. Some people find writing down a gratitude diary where they write down whatever they're grateful for to having a more positive mindset. All of these things are very important, and it all helps because it just helps you flush whatever you're going through onto a piece of paper. Next, I want to talk about the Trojan horse. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the Trojan horse. Um, Back in the Greek mythology, the Greek army constructed the Trojan horse to invade the city of Troy. Okay, the concept here is that it causes a subject to invite a foe into a securely protected place, which for us is our home, our bedroom, and our bed. And the Trojan horse of today is our technology, our phones, our tablets, our laptops, our work that's coming into the bed with us. The recommendation is please do not have any screens, no phones, no tablets, no computers 1 to 2 hours before bed. So unplug and try to relax before bedtime. And as we were talking and we did the chat, so many of us struggle with this, right? Something else that you also have to recognize why this is a recommendation is because technology impacts our sleep by suppressing the melatonin that is naturally produced in the body, which results in dysregulation of our sleep cycle. I know you guys are going to come back at me and say, you know what, we have a thing called a blue light filter where we can incorporate the light and prevent the blue light from coming. Yes, you can do that to some degree, but sometimes the content that you expose yourself to from work or at home or social media can trigger negative emotions, can trigger negative thoughts, and make it difficult for you to fall asleep. I watched a very interesting documentary on Netflix several years ago called Social Dilemma. I would encourage you to think about watching it if you have some time. And one of the dialogues that really stuck out to me was there's a screen. On one side of the screen is us, and on the other side of the screen is billions and billions of dollars being spent to make sure that we are staying on that screen. So it's not really a fair fight. We're not doing it out of just a habit. It's something that people are planning to do or invested to do to keep us hooked up to that screen. So please take your time and take time to sleep and rest. Next, I'm going to talk about time travel. I'm not sure if you realize that we do time travel every now and then, which in this example is not a good thing. The idea is if you have different sleep time on the weekdays and different sleep time on the weekdays, you're actually doing a thing called a social jet lag. Let's suppose you sleep at 8 o'clock on the weekdays and 10 o'clock on the weekend. That's like traveling to Chicago every weekend and coming back to San Francisco on the weekend. Okay. Same thing with if you have a 3 hour time difference, that's like going to New York and coming back. If I made you do that on a weekly basis, your sleep would not be the greatest either. So the idea is, or the recommendation is that I want you to have a consistent bedtime and wake up time so your body understands which time zone you're in. Now coming to the bedtime or at nighttime, you should have a routine, a ritual before going to bed, which is very important. Doing the same thing in the same order before going to bed will allow your body to slow down and relax and anticipate going to bed. Okay? You should be sleeping in a dark, quiet, and cool room to sleep in. Go to bed when you feel sleepy. We do not sit on the table and wait to be hungry. In the same way, we should not get in bed and wait to be sleepy. Okay? Use your bed for sleeping and sleeping only. So again, no other activities in bed. Do not watch TV. Do not play video games. Do not do any work on the bed. And that makes it difficult for you to fall asleep. My next recommendation, I think, is what I usually use for people who really struggle with mind racing. The bed is supposed to be a place where you go to get recharge, refresh, and rejuvenate yourself. But if you're in bed for several minutes to hours every night, that same bed becomes a place where you're going to get irritated, get frustrated, feel helpless, feel hopeless, and you start cultivating negative emotions with your bed. Okay. And the idea is for you to be able to associate positive emotions with your bed. So the idea and the recommendation is if you are in bed for 15, 20 minutes and you're wide awake and your mind is racing and you just can't stop thinking about things, the idea and the recommendation is for you to get up, get out of bed, do something non-stimulating, and get back in bed when you feel sleepy again. This could be as simple as getting up, touching a wall, and coming back in bed. It could be going to the bathroom and coming back in bed. It could be doing something that's very non-stimulating. Like for kids, I tell them they could do chores like folding and unfolding laundry, organizing papers, reading something that's not very exciting for them. What this does, it forces your mind to reset, because whatever you were thinking about, you have to stop thinking about it, because now you have to put one foot in front of the other and go somewhere. So this is a forced mind reset for you. Next thing is please remove all clocks or watches in or around your bed. This includes phones as well, because when you're looking at the time in the beginning of the night, it's giving you more and more pressure that you have spent so much time trying to sleep, and now you have less and less time to actually sleep. And then if you ever wake up in the middle of the night and look at your time to see what time it is in the middle of the night, then you start negotiating with yourself if you should stay asleep or wake up, and again you're messing up your sleep. So do not look at the time, trust your alarm, and put away your devices or your clocks, so you're not engaged in that time calculation situation. The next recommendation is probably the most upside down recommendation you've ever heard in your life. Okay, and it's gonna totally blow you away. The recommendation next one is, when you're in bed, try to stay awake and not try to sleep. Okay, the reason behind this, or the wisdom behind this, is the more you try to sleep, the harder you try to sleep, the more the sleep runs away from you. Okay, so think about happy things, relaxing things, comfortable things, pleasurable things, and the sleep will come to you much more naturally. So those were my recommendations for sleep hygiene. I'm going to again take a pause to see if there are any questions, and also ask Sister Nazira, how are we doing with time, if I should go into my next session or not.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iqbal. We're doing okay on time. I see a ton of questions, a ton of really good questions in the chat. So I'll maybe we'll take a quick pause and take one question right now, and then we're gonna is the last portion the one that we had discussed as the maybe, or you got your
No,
your
this
final?
is the time. We'll be talking about sleep apnea, and so
Yeah.
I would like to talk about this. So,
Definitely.
what? I don't have my clock with me. So, what time do we have? What time is it right
We're
now?
at 5:20 right now. So
Okay, so
let me,
I think I should. Let me just finish my
yeah,
5 more minutes for all my other things, and then we could take questions as many as they have.
perfect. Yeah, we got a lot lined up for you. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So now switching to the quality, I already spoke about the quantity of sleep. Now switching to the quality of sleep. Okay, so what are the first things that impact your sleep quality is your restless sleep or restless leg syndrome. So the definition of restless leg syndrome is a sensation in your legs that's very difficult to describe for most people. But some people are able to describe it as tingling, creepy, crawly, itchy, achy feeling that's worse in the evening, and you have this urge to move your legs or kick your legs for it to go away. Some kids use even more colorful language. Some kids would say soda bubbles in their legs, or wigglies in their legs, or jigglies in their legs. So if they have anything that they can describe, that means that they may have restless leg syndrome, or it could just be restless sleep or something on those lines. If somebody you know has these restless leg syndrome symptoms or restless sleep, the first thing you should do is have them check the child's ferritin. And if the ferritin level is less than 75, give them some iron supplementation, and that should usually resolve this over a number of months. Okay, that's about restless sleep. Switching to obstructive sleep apnea, which is also something very common in our community. So obstructive sleep apnea is a recurrent functional collapse of the airway despite ongoing breathing effort. The way I think of insomnia, sleep apnea, is by understanding what actually happens in that. So nobody ever snores while they're awake. That's because the muscles of your upper airway is working against each other to keep the airway open. When we're sleeping, our muscles sleep with us. The muscles relax. The upper airway collapses. There's no air going in our lungs, and that becomes a problem. There's blood going in the lungs all the time, and when that blood does not pick up any oxygen and takes it to the brain is made aware that there's no air in the lungs. Brain, being a smart organ, chooses to breathe. Oversleeping, wakes up the muscles. Now the airway is open again. You're able to get the air back in your lungs. This time the blood is being able to be picked up and able to pick up oxygen from the blood, takes it back to the brain. Now the brain is reassured, tries to fall asleep, and the cycle repeats itself over and over again. How frequently this happens determines how severe your sleep apnea is. We have different scales for pediatrics and adults. In pediatrics, if you do these events like stop breathing or have shallow breathing, less than 1 times per hour, it's normal. 1 to 5 is mild. 5 to 10 is moderate. Anything above 10 is considered severe sleep apnea. In adults, less than 5 events per hour is normal. 5 to 15 is mild. 15 to 30 is moderate. Anything above 30 is considered severe sleep apnea. And so symptoms that you would see, especially in kids, is snoring, stop breathing, waking up gasping for breath, sleeping with their mouth open, tossing and turning, or being restless while they sleep. All these could be suggestive of sleep apnea. And what this results in, it just results in fragmented sleep because you have to keep waking up so you could keep breathing again. And that's what you're seeing at night. During the day, what you're seeing is difficulty waking up from sleep, having issues with attention and paying attention or ADHD-like symptoms, behavioral issues, school performance issues, mood issues, or excessive daytime sleepiness and tiredness. Sometimes some people describe it as tired but wired. All these are clues that your child may be having sleep apnea. So if you have any of those things, talk to the doctor or talk to me after the presentation, and I'm more than happy to guide you through all this. So my last couple of slides is I want you to prioritize your sleep. It will definitely change your life because if you take a pause and understand we are sleeping 1/3 of our life, and how well we sleep will determine how good your sleep is gonna, your day is gonna be. And if you're not taking good care of your sleep, everything could be negatively impact. So as Shakespeare said, enjoy the honey heavy dew of slumber. And I thank you, and I'm open to any question that the chat may be coming out of.
Thank you so much. MashaAllah. May Allah bless you. Let's send the blessings of salawat to Dr. Iqbal.
Thank you so much.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of questions already lined up in the chat. I welcome further questions. And without further ado, I'd also like to welcome back Shaykh Salim so we can hear from both of our guest speakers tonight and get their perspective on some of these questions that we have going. So I'm going to go ahead and start to facilitate the questions. The first one was about sleep association. So let me scroll back up here. So Sister Umbreen asks, a lot of moms enjoy cuddling or rocking their babies to sleep. It helps them co-regulate and bond with their babies. If we're put our babies to sleep awake in their beds and have them learn to self-soothe and sleep by themselves, aren't we losing out on a lot? And I'd like to hear from both Sheikh Salim and then Dr. Iqbal as well. Sheikh Salim, maybe you want to go first?
Sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Dr. Iqbal, for that very good presentation, mashallah. So I think that it's very important, for a mother or for parents to pay attention to those God-given instincts. When we sense that the child needs us, they need our presence, they need us to be there to comfort them, right? We shouldn't abandon them at the time of their need. Okay, at the same time, we want to make sure we distinguish between what is a need and what is a want. Okay, so while the child might want us for that whole process from the beginning to the end, and then even when they wake up, that's not something which is the need of the child. But there is something which is the need, which is that they should not feel that they have to face this world alone. Right? And this is on a psychological level, this is very important that, for example, let's say somebody takes the harsh cry it out method, where they just let their children cry it out until they go to sleep, they might get quick results. They might see that their children are able to do self-soothing, but on a psychological level, that child is growing up with a type of identity that, okay, they went from a very young age, right? They didn't have that support and care when they needed it, and that can have long-term psychological impacts on them. So this is where we try to find a happy middle, right? Like Dr. Iqbal recommended, child, you can be there to soothe them, to comfort them, but see if you can put them in before they fall asleep, so they get used to being able to actually fall asleep on their own, right? It might take longer at the beginning, right? But if you put in that time, then eventually, you'll be able to find something that works. For those of you who have infants, there are some been some good work in this area that's done to come up with like practices and techniques that can really work in terms of like when you what you do at what week, and how you gradually develop this sort of understanding that the child on one hand feels the presence of the parent, but on the other hand they are learning to fall asleep and stay asleep themselves.
I thank you so much for this is a really, really good question. Can you hear me as well? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So I couldn't agree more. So they're always again, I love the question. So the reason why we have kids, and the reason I had kids is so I could hug them and love them. That's the whole point. And it's not just for the kids to feel good about themselves, it's also for us to feel good about them ourselves, right? Uh, so many of the community members know I have three wonderful, beautiful daughters, and they're the love of my life. Why would I have a child I could not love? So it defeats the whole purpose, right? So the whole idea of having a child is to be able to love them. And I do not want any of those negative emotions to be cultivated exactly as Sheikh Salim said. So the way I recommend doing this is to have that time. You are supposed to hug them, you're supposed to hold them, you're supposed to feed them, but just be a little bit creative in how you do that. So do all of those things, and then after you've fed them, after you've taken good care of them, start the bedtime routine after that. After you've done that, then you can change them, and then you can put them in the bed, right? So do not have them fall asleep with you. That is the only rule I'm saying is don't have them fall asleep with you in the bed, because then you're creating that sleep association. But you can do whatever you want before that, love them, care for them, do whatever you have to do for them. And after you feel that they are getting sleepy, you can maybe change the diaper that time if it's a small baby, or you could have them go to the bathroom and then go and sleep, but then they will be able to sleep by themselves. Something else that my dad said to me when I was in school, and it still holds true, that there is nothing that is scientific. There's nothing Islamic that is unscientific. So our science is only catching up to Islam. So if for some reason you are finding that science is in conflict with Islam, is because science has not caught up to the wisdom of Islam. So the way we are nurtured, the way we are trying to groom ourselves, we have to be humble enough to realize that our knowledge of science is still very elementary, and there's so much for us to learn, and we can always look to Islam to provide us all the right answers. So I love the question. And I appreciate Sheikh Salim's answer as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both Sheikh Salim and Dr. Iqbal. Okay, next question is a good one. I see some complaints about masjid programming here, saying in regards to the, I think you called it the social jet lag, that occurs maybe between like, different sleep times and wake times within the week, specifically about Ramadan, masjid programming, families wanting to make it a priority to go to the masjid, but then having these, issues with bedtimes and late programming. And again, I think this is a great question for the both of you, Sheikh Salim and Dr. Iqbal. If you guys can both, share your perspectives on what is the right thing to do. Some families are asking about, what should they do from an Islamic lens? Go to the masjid, not go to the masjid, it's Ramadan, and so on. So maybe Sheikh Salim, you want to start off again, please?
Sure. So one thing that we should realize is that, Islamically speaking, we do have a time where we're supposed to go to the masjid as like a part of the Sharia, which is the Friday prayers, which is midday, right? So if we're trying to like plan out, what is most important for our children's tarbiyah and their education, that should be one of the primary times that we really try to put that effort to come to the center. Okay, other programs like, these are things which have been part of the culture that's been developed around various things, but it's not something which is necessarily part. Another thing that's part of the masjid is doing jama'ah prayers, right? But everything that comes afterwards isn't necessarily something which is like this is the way the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam wanted us to do it. And so it's negotiable, right? As we're trying to educate our children, we can pick and choose what's good and what's not good based on all the factors that we're looking holistically that we're looking at it. One thing I want to say is that, you know, we as parents need to have a stronger voice when it comes to setting the programming for the centers. Sometimes the people who are doing it are people who maybe have a little bit more time on their hands, right? Because maybe their children are a little bit younger, sorry, a little bit older, or their children, let's say they don't have children yet, right? But sometimes the families which have the children are the busiest, so they don't get involved with like the actual planning of the programs, but their voice needs to be heard. Because if there's more stronger voice and more orientation around, like, we need to design our programs so they're family friendly, family first, then some things would also change. Last thing I'll mention here is that um, we don't necessarily have to stay for the whole program. It's not wajib to, have the SABA dinner when we go for the SABA program. I know everyone likes to have at least one go at the dinner, if not two goes at the dinner, both the spicy and not spicy, right? It's not wajib, right? In fact, it's actually very unhealthy to have a heavy meal at like 8:30 at night, right? Plus the chai on top of it as well. So sometimes we need to think about this. Maybe we need to like feed our children at home, and then we leave earlier, right? We got like what we wanted from the program, we got the children's program, and then we leave. That's another approach towards it. And finally, in the month of Ramadan, at least at Rise Academy, we do adopt, we do change the schedule to hopefully allow for adjusting bedtimes so that, at least for the family friendly portions of the night programs, the families can participate, inshallah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think in this situation, I think trying to be a little bit more mindful as to what your priorities are. Also for us, as I said, we can't be getting 8 hours of sleep if you're only in bed for 6 hours, right? And understand that Ramadan already is very physically taxing for us, and it's also, we also have to recognize that we also need our break to be able to cope up with what we have to do during the day. So not sleeping is further hampering our productivity during the day, which is not a good thing. So I don't think I have anything to add to what Sheikh Salim is saying. I think we have to prioritize our sleep, we have to prioritize our programs, and we should be able to, if we can accommodate, have earlier programs so we are able to get done in time and be able to get to sleep on time. Next question, Sister Nazir.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both of you, for your answer. Okay, we'll try and take maybe one or two more, depending on the length of the answers here. So question is at what age should we take it seriously if a child is still co-sleeping with their parents? What would be a step-by-step process that we can take to make a change?
That's a good question. So I think, as I said, after 6 months, they should be able to sleep by themselves. There's no nutritional need for them to sleep with you. There's no emotional need for them to sleep with you. Okay, so if they're still sleeping with you, that's when you're starting to develop the poor habit of the sleep onset association insomnia. So trying to separate yourself, they're step by step. So if you're already sleeping in the same bed, maybe distancing yourself in the same bed, maybe the first step. So sleeping at an arm's length. So you're sleeping on one side, they'll be sleeping on the other side. And then after that, you can just slowly distance yourself. And sometimes what you can do after that is have the child be in the bed, but you can sit on the chair next to the bed, right? And then slowly the chair moves further and further away from the bed and then out at the door and out the door. And that would be a way to do this. So obviously at the same time when you're doing this, the child is going to push back. But again, that's when the firm bedtime limits, firm bedtime rules comes in. But again, be positive, be supportive, be encouraged. I don't want, as Sheikh Salim was saying, I don't want the child to be crying. And so be a little bit more mindful of how you can do this. So plan your day so you can plan your night accordingly.
Excellent. Would you like to add anything, Sheikh Salim? Okay. I see a hand that's been raised. Brother Mahdi, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely amazing. MashaAllah, Sheikh Salim and Dr. Iqbal. Dr. Iqbal, how about those parents that, and this topic recently came up and I spoke to Sheikh Salim about it. Here's some parents that regularly give melatonin to their kids, these gummies, and they're kind of like, they use it as a method and they tell other parents about it. What do you think about this? Is this healthy? Is this something that we should be doing to our children?
Good question. You don't need to give a child melatonin to be able to sleep. You don't have to do that. If they're having a difficult time sleeping, there may be something else going on. Okay, there may be some emotional stuff happening, there may be some anxiety happening, there may be something else happening that's preventing the child from going to sleep. The child or anybody does not need a melatonin to be able to sleep if they're doing it. So I use melatonin in some specialized population that I have, but it's not our generally healthy kids. So you don't have to give melatonin. And I don't know if you're following the news, there was a recent article that did show some association with bad cardiac outcomes with melatonin usage. So again, every medicine, no matter who gives it to you, has its own set of side effects. So every medicine should be very carefully thought about and considered before you give the child a medicine. Okay, a child generally should not, a normal healthy child should not be given melatonin unless you speak to somebody about it and why. I hope that answered the question, Brother Mehdi.
Absolutely. Sheikh Salim, did you want to add anything on that? You were mentioning something. I thought it'd be good information.
Yeah, I just um, what I had also learned from somebody who I consider to be authoritative in this area was that there was some association that has been found between giving child melatonin and it affecting like their puberty. And that's something which is very scary, especially when we see that one of the problems that's happening is the early onset of puberty that can cause a lot of emotional issues and also can lead to a decreased lifespan as well. So the same thing that with Dr. Iqbal, that we have to be aware of the consequences, long-term consequences. Sometimes we apply something and we're looking for a quick solution, but really we need to be looking for the root causes of it. Why is it that the child doesn't have that type of satisfying, nourishing sleep that it was meant to get to be? Like the Quran says that وَجَعَلَ نَوْمَكُمْ سُبَاتًا. No, sleep is supposed to be subat. It's supposed to be satisfying and nourishing. Why isn't it nourishing? We need to be looking for that as opposed to a quick fix with melatonin.
Another question I had was on the CPAP. We hear a lot of people use these machines now, and they get the recorder. Um, do you prescribe CPAP to children as well, doctor? And also the nose strip and the mouth tape, these methods that are being used. Is this stuff that we should do on our own? Is this something we should talk to a doctor about? If you could just
A
give some.
good question. So the number one way of, depending on how bad your sleep apnea is, if it's mild, we can have a different, like a more conservative management for it. But if the child has big adenoids and tonsils, then the number one treatment for sleep apnea in pediatrics is surgery. Okay, I do, and what the surgery does, it takes the adenoids and tonsils out, opens up the airway, and removes the obstruction, and that usually, for the vast majority of the patients, resolve the problem for pediatric patients. I frequently prescribe CPAP if the surgery is not an option, if a child is obese, and CPAP is a very successful management for sleep apnea. It is the only intervention in medicine that is 100% effective with minimal side effects. Okay, the only challenge is to be able to keep the mask on and keep it on all night. Okay, and that is the Achilles heel for sleep apnea. Okay, but there are ways to coming around it. Obviously, it's a treatment. It's a management option. It's like a drug or like a treatment you're doing. So it doesn't have to be pleasant, but it's very important that you take care of it. Untreated sleep apnea in adults can lead to high blood pressure, high risk of stroke, heart attacks, diabetes, weight gain. So pretty much most of the top 5 or top 10 causes of mortality and morbidity has some relationship with sleep apnea if you're not careful. So it is something that is I do frequently prescribe if somebody is struggling with the sleep apnea. I'm more than happy to help them in any way I can. But it is something that should be taken seriously and it should be addressed. Coming back to the nose strips and the mouth tape, again, what is the reason for it? Why are you doing it? The nose tape may be because you have like an adenoid that's in the back of your nose and you're not able to breathe through your nose. You may have turbinates in your nose that's preventing you to breathe normally. Yeah, so there are different reasons for that. But again, let's talk as to why if you have sleep apnea or not. And if you do, we can certainly take care of it with CPAP if we have to. But weight loss, taking healthy care of yourself can also significantly help you with your sleep apnea as well.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal. I have a couple more questions here in the
Mhm.
chat. One question from brother or sister iPhone says, why does my teen still feel tired after getting the proper necessary amount of sleep?
Good question. So then if the quantity is adequate, as I mentioned, the quality should be looked into, right? Is the child a restless sleeper? right? Does the child have sleep apnea, as we just talked about with the brother Mehdi? So if your child is sleeping adequately, what else is going on? Does he struggle with anxiety? So I just saw a patient a few days ago who had very significant anxiety and they were in a perpetual state of hyperarousal, right? So that could be something as well. So is the mood okay? Is there any elements of any mood disorder that could be happening? So dig a little bit deeper. If the quantity is adequate, look for explanations in the quality of your sleep. If that's still been ruled out, then look for other reasons to what's happening with the child. But if your child is excessively sleepy despite adequate sleep, you should be looked into a little bit more. Is the child really sleeping at night? Okay, you may assume that he is sleeping, but is he really sleeping at night or not? So many times we assume that our kids went to bed and we're in bed and they may be doing something at night and not really sleepy. Or not really sleeping. So again, look a little bit deeper, but it's definitely something you should look into a little bit more. One thing, if you don't mind, I could add something else. There's also a condition that I did not talk about right now, the condition called narcolepsy, which is excessive daytime sleepiness and tiredness. It can be triggered during the teenage years. Okay, that's when the peaks when that can happen. So if you ruled out all the quality and the quantity issues, then talk to somebody else to what else could that be something we could look into as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Iqbal. So I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Sister Uswa asked, she says that she feels extremely sleepy even if she uses a screen or anything. Her daughter is screen-free since birth, no television in the house even. But even then, she has restless sleep. She's a healthy eater, outdoor exercise, has a routine and co-sleep. I think she has a good routine for all of these things. She's active, etc. And doctors are saying that she's a precocious child and she's looking for a possible answer.
Did you say she's a restless sleeper or not a restless sleeper?
Not a restless sleeper.
Okay. Then I think you should. I'm not sure if you have a Kaiser or not as your what you call it, your insurance. I work for Kaiser.
I'm so sorry to
Not a
interrupt.
restful sleeper.
She is a restless sleeper. I'm so
Oh,
sorry
okay.
to
Not a
interrupt.
restful
Yeah.
sleeper, excuse me.
Oh, so
Yeah.
she is a restless sleeper, you said, Sister
She is a
Uswa?
restless sleeper.
Okay, so that's good to know. So first thing I would recommend you do is to have your doctor check her blood work to see if she has low iron levels, specifically ferritin level. And if the ferritin level is low, give her some iron supplementation. Depending on how low the iron is, it may take us several months for the levels to improve. And once the levels improve, you will see a slow and gradual improvement in her sleep quality, and with that in her daytime and nighttime function. But if it continues to be a problem, then we should dig a little bit deeper. If you are a Kaiser member, I work for Kaiser. I'm more than happy to see you, and you could request your primary care physician to do the referral for me. And then if you're not a Kaiser member, then maybe reach out to a sleep specialist to see if there's anything else that's going on. But my first step would be to check her iron to see if that is a contributing issue. I hope I answered your question, Sister Usma.
Is it okay if I speak?
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, her iron levels have been fluctuating, and I'm working on it, and I'm really conscious about these things. But the issue is that since birth, she has this issue, even when her iron levels are fine. And we know about the sleep regressions and every single thing you can tell me. I have literally researched it pretty deep. But the problem is that doctors say that she's a precocious child because she's like her mind doesn't sleep. So if she has, I'm not even able to train her because if I wake her up during the night for a bathroom, she's gonna be like, whenever she wakes up, she's like super active, like she's ready to talk and everything. So what do you have to say if the kids are especially what can we do for the kids that are like precocious and they have some, I don't know, their brains are like always active, and even when we try to give them zero naps, they get overtired, and if we give them naps, and then it's the same thing.
Right. Those are so I would like to learn a little bit more about your child, because obviously
Sure.
this is so I'm more than happy if Dr. Nazira, if you want to give my number to the
That would be
sister.
great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So again, it will be, if you're not a Kaiser member, it'll be like an unofficial quote unquote consult, but obviously I'm happy to serve you in any way I can.
Jazakallah.
Of
Thank
course,
you.
of course.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal. Let's take one last question, and it's actually there's a couple of questions that are related here. And I see a lot of questions about logistics and like technicalities of how we're going to share the information, and I'll answer that as well right after we get to this question. It's about the sleep cycle, Dr. Iqbal. Someone said that they read that if you complete the sleep cycle, you don't need more or less sleep. Someone asked about the distribution between like REM and the different stages of sleep and so on. So can you
Oh,
share a little bit of insight on those things?
yeah, I can actually, if you give me a second, I can actually share what a sleep cycle looks like, and we can talk about that right away. I have a slide that I hid because I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough time, but I can definitely talk about that right now since we have some time. So this is what our sleep looks like generally. Okay, so again, sleep, as I said, is a state of unconsciousness, and this is what our sleep looks like. So let me just see if I can do a pointer. So this is what our sleep looks like. So you're awake. And so again, this slide is a quick overview of normal sleep and sleep architecture. There are two main sleep stages, REM, which is rapid eye movement sleep, and non-REM, which is non-rapid eye movement sleep. Um, Non-REM occurs more in the first half of the night, and the REM sleep occurs more in the second half of the night. This, as I said, is a hypnogram that illustrates what our sleep looks like every night. The y-axis represents different sleep stages, and the x-axis represents the time that we're sleeping. So again, from awake, we go to stage 1 or N1, and 2, and 3 are deep sleep. We go into REM and then roll over into a second sleep cycle. Sometimes in that time after REM, we can have a partial arousal and then start a second, what you call sleep cycle. And so again, these sleep and so you could have an average of 5 to 10 non-REM cycles, and they're woven together seamlessly. So the transition from one to the next is not behaviorally apparent for you guys. And if a child, as I was saying, if the child wakes up here, that's when you need the association to be able to sleep again. Otherwise, they would be stuck waking up right here. Did that answer the question, sister? If you want, you can come off mute and ask the specific question that you have, if you have any other question pertaining to the sleep cycles.
There's a couple of people who asked a similar question, so I think you did answer it though. So thank you so
Okay.
much, Dr.
Okay, of
Iqbal.
course, of course, of course.
With that, I want to be mindful of our time and go ahead and close. I know we didn't get to every single question. This is a topic that I know there's a lot of interest here. Alhamdulillah. Again, I really want to thank Dr. Iqbal Rashid and Shaykh Salim Yusufali for sharing their insight. There's a lot of questions about how we're going to be sharing this information. Inshallah, we do have this session being recorded, and so we will share it. Either it'll be through the YouTube or some other format for our family. So inshallah, you can look forward to that. That'll inshallah include, the visual here with the slide deck or maybe an attachment with the slides. Also, Dr. Iqbal, there have been a few people who have asked if there's any way that they can get in contact with you.
Sure, sure.
So
So
I'll
you
let
can yeah, you can share my phone number or my
your
my
email.
email address, yeah. And then and if they have any specific questions, they're more than welcome to email me. I think that may be a better idea.
Yeah,
But whatever works for them, obviously I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So if your questions were not answered, I apologize for that. But I'm more than happy to answer your questions if there's anything I can do to help you.
excellent. Thank you so much again for being so
Of
generous with
course.
your time and your knowledge. Again, we pray for you. May Allah bless
Thank
you.
you.
And again, I thank all of our audience members for joining us today. And I pray for all of our families and our children to have, inshallah, we hope to see that they will benefit from everything that we as parents have learned here today. And with that, I wish you all a good evening. And inshallah, I hope that we all take away at least one thing that we plan to implement in our own sleep hygiene and the sleep hygiene and habits of our family members this week, so that inshallah we can, put into action the things that we've learned. With that, I thank you all again so much for joining. And inshallah, I bid you a good evening and a good night. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.